Okay, so I think we will get started. Welcome everyone to our CIMTR webinar called Music Therapy and Mental Health, Research and Setting Up a New Service in Trinidad and Tobago. We have our guest speaker, Jamal Glynn, and I would like to just introduce you to some of the features of Zoom before we get started. So only the speakers and hosts can share their audio. Please put your questions in the chat throughout the presentation so that Jamal can answer your questions once he's finished presenting. And I hope you all enjoy the webinar today. I'm going to pass you over now to the Director of the Cambridge Institute for Music Therapy Research, Professor Helen O'Dell-Miller, and she's going to introduce Jamal.
Hello everyone and welcome. I can see people are coming from all over the world, and I'm delighted to welcome you all to our second in this series, where we're featuring alumni who have undertaken research and who have also been setting up new services around the world. And just in case you're new to this series, this is the Cambridge Institute for Music Therapy Research at Anglia Ruskin University. And we are carrying out research linked to the Cambridge School for Creative Industries, where our master's students are also based. So we have a welcome to music therapy students, drama therapy students at Anglia Ruskin, and our PhD students that are within CIMTR. And then welcome to others from across all our faculties at ARU and beyond, because we have a big public audience for these webinars. And thank you to Kira, who's one of our Vice Chancellor PhD students working in the field of dementia, who is working with me on the series. Our main research areas are healthy aging and dementia, music therapy and neuroscience, neurorehabilitation and stroke, mental health, which is very relevant to today's talk, and children, young people and families. And we have multidisciplinary and multi-site research going on, some internally funded and some quite large externally funded projects by EPSRC, for example, and Alzheimer's Society UK, and many others. So I think that's quite enough from me. I'm so delighted to welcome Jamal Glynn, who I have kept up with since he did his training and his master's at Anglia Ruskin, having come over from Trinidad. And he's going to talk to you about his work that he's developed since then as a leader in mental health field in Trinidad and Tobago. And welcome, Jamal. It's really great to see you here and for you to come and speak to us tonight. Over to you.
Greetings, everyone. I'm really honored to be here to share a bit of my work experience in Trinidad and Tobago. I work under the umbrella of the Northwest Regional Health Authority. I'm a member of the British Association for Music Therapy, and I'm also registered with HCPC. I would like now to talk a bit about steel pan. I'm the first steel pan musician to become a music therapist. And in the steel pan world, we have different combinations. We have soloists, duets, small ensemble. Also, we have large orchestras with 100 players, for example, during our panorama competition. So I would like now to just share a musical piece from what I did on an interesting instrument called the oversized double seconds instrument. And this is an example of a soloist performance. The steel pans are indigenous to Trinidad and Tobago. It's our national instrument, and the steel pan can play in a wide range of music, from classics to pop, calypso as our local music. So music is something that's really exciting or calming for us, and sometimes it can move us in interesting ways. And we have like memories that resonate with our feelings, helping us to express them and communicate with others. So many people ask the question, what is music therapy? And music therapy is a therapeutic process which occurs within a safe and trusting environment. And what's useful about that, it's non-verbal communication, and we use the elements of melody, rhythm, pitch, tone to help in this therapeutic process. Some of the benefits of music therapy. And music therapy could be seen in different settings, a variety of settings, including the psychiatric setting. And because music therapy also, a benefit of it would be scientific evidence to demonstrate how it can impact on people who are suffering with schizophrenia or depression. It's also an add-on to standard care, and music therapy also suggests that music therapy improves the global state and improve functioning if a sufficient amount of sessions are provided. So upon returning home to Trinidad after getting a developmental needs award, my training was really interesting as I got to experience interactions with, for example, the late Tony Wigram, and he shared something to me, and he said, Jamal, work hard, no stress, and be happy. So returning to Trinidad, I was assigned to the Ministry of Health and then assigned to our psychiatric hospital. In this hospital, we have, in the Department of Psychology, we have 7 clinical psychologists and 2 art therapists. Also, it created the opportunity to create the first post for an MA-trained music therapist in Trinidad. This happened 10 years ago. So I'm a traveling officer. I work in the public sector, and I work with a variety of clients. I work with adults who suffer depression, who suffer schizophrenia, who also suffer with dementia. I see children who suffer behavioral issues and psychological issues. For example, children who suffer ADHD and who may have violent tendencies. I also worked with long-stay patients on the forensic ward. And this work took place for over 5 or 6 years. So the places that I've worked in established music therapy, I'm going to talk a bit more about Arima Rehabilitation Center, and that's part of the research talk. And at Barataria Wellness Center, I work with clients, and I'm going to share like an experience, adults mainly who suffer with depression and who may be suicidal. So there's one example, a client came into a music therapy session and they were really desperate. And in the music therapy session, at the end of the music therapy session, I felt it was useful to talk to other team members to see if there could be added support. And what was useful about that is when the added support came and they had a discussion, the MHOs and senior nursing staff, they communicated with the client and then the client was admitted to hospital. And that was a breakthrough because we got an opportunity to save someone's life. At the Shagona Psychiatric Clinic, I mainly work with young adults who suffer with autism. And that work has been ongoing, and I've seen over a period of time where music therapy helped these young adults to become more verbal, to manage their daily lives a bit better, and have a better quality of life since these sessions. I recently started work at a substance misuse clinic, and this has been interesting work. So it's basically the form of an experiential group. So sometimes every week when I go to a session, it changes the amount of clients that I see. At the Child Guidance Clinic, I've valued that experience because of the senior psychiatrist. And I think that's really valuable because in interacting and case conferencing, there's a lot of support, a lot of understanding that happens, a lot of discussion in terms of how we review the case and how we treat clients, as music therapy is a new approach add-on to standard care. And as I said, at the CIMTR Psychiatric Hospital, I work on the forensic ward. And these clients, the work was beneficial because these clients moved, there were 11 of them, and 7 of them were moved to less secure wards. So that was significant in itself. So my role as a music therapist is to provide a safe and trusted environment, including psychological support for many of my patients. Many of the patients believe that they were coming to be taught how to play an instrument. They didn't understand how music therapy looks. So constantly in the initial stages, and still a bit more today, it's really something that I continue to engage in, to just educate people that music therapy is really different from teaching. And as I talked before, at case conferencing, it's usually useful to discuss the progress of clients. So for example, when someone plays a musical instrument, the dopamine levels increase or serotonin levels increase. And if we think about pharmacotreatment and how does that impact on clients, it's really important that we have discussions to see how we can help this client have a better quality of life. So it's really important that we really have discussions. Sorry. Many of the professionals are slowly beginning to change their point of view, because in the early 2011, 2012, many professionals didn't understand what music therapy was. They really struggled because I'm coming into the medical model, and based on that, there was more assessments going on and not a lot of psychotherapy happening. And I provided weekly sessions. So it was really add-on to standard care, but the professionals really struggled to understand that. So a big part of my drive was to educate other clinical staff. I'll see like nurses on training, young students coming on their work placement, students coming on their world of work experience, and I'll share as much as I can about music therapy just to help with the education of what music therapy is. Research in 2012 where embarked upon using the positive and negative syndrome scale as an evidence-based method for this pilot study. The results were published in the Caribbean Medical Journal. What was interesting about this was the first time any such work, any clinical research in music therapy had been written. And the purpose for the study was to demonstrate the benefits of initial implementation of music therapy within the psychiatric setting in Trinidad and Tobago, to provide evidence, scientific evidence that music therapy is a credible intervention, because many of the professionals were wondering, but if he's play pan, but then everybody can play pan, and what's the rationale? So there was a lot of re-educating, a lot of education that took place, and through this pilot study, we had the opportunity to do that. And also another purpose would have been to show that the benefits of music therapy as an adjunct to the medical model, which is slowly changing. The methods used, as I talked before, I worked at the Arima Rehab Center, and during this pilot study, with 5, I decided out of 33 clients who were referred, because music therapy is a referral system, to form small groups of 5 members, and just to see how they will progress over a period of time. So we used the positive and negative syndrome scale, and I was really delighted because it was the first time I sat with a psychiatrist who interviewed each patient, and that was valuable for me to see how an assessment is done using the positive and negative syndrome scale. And we were after 6 months of treatment, and we included a nurse as an active observer as part of the music therapy group. Although the study, the sample of clients are really small, the results suggest that music therapy can encourage nonverbal communication, emotional release, insightful analysis, orientation. For example, clients, because I come every day at the clinic at a particular time, they will say to the nurses or to the other staff, right, Mr. Glynn or Jamal is coming today at this time, and it really helps them. It helps them in terms of being in the here and now. And this also helped with the perception of what music therapy is, or the public perception of what music therapy is, or the staff perception of what music therapy is. The results are further indication that music therapy enables clients to be more adventurous, and you're going to see examples of that later on. Some clients were able to change personally, either displaying different moods during group sessions. They also became less dominating and insensitive. Sometimes someone may want to talk over the group or be heard, as the case might be, while playing musical instruments. So just to describe the setting, the music therapy sessions were conducted on Tuesdays. Each Tuesday, I'm going to go there for a particular time. I'm going to use the music therapy room. The instruments that were available were the glockenspiel, small electric keyboard, 3 djembes, better known as African drums, acoustic guitar, snare drum, steel pan, tenor pan, crash cymbals, and small percussion instruments. All clients were diagnosed with schizophrenia, suffering from psychosis, and have problems with confidence, self-esteem, and the main point, interacting in groups. So I'm going to now play an example of a session with one of the groups. This happened, session 3, in the 3rd session. They were not aware of themselves. It seemed as though it was really difficult for them. At the time, in the initial music therapy session, there were less eye contact. All right, as I said before, in music therapy, I'll just need to point this out. In music therapy, there are different approaches, and I really talk about or think about free improvisation. So I'm not teaching any client how to play. So we have a framework of a beginning and an end for 5 minutes, a 5-minute period, and we're going to see like someone who's going to lead it on, or yes, who's going to start the music making. And it's really interesting because, as I said, I don't teach them how to play any instrument. So we are having an experiential group experience. So in this second therapeutic relationship, there was reminiscence containing the group. One client, Brent, he seemed really disorganized with his thoughts musically, and you're gonna get to hear that. And perhaps delusion or hallucination. So my role as a music therapist in this particular musical clip was to think about how to contain the group. And that's basically from understanding of beyond, contain or contained, and Donald Winnicott's idea of holding a client, holding a young one. So the tenor pan, I use a melodic contour to help hold the group together, because as we heard, there may have been perhaps something really difficult happening there. In this third example, this is from session 16, and there's more support from the group. And one of the clients, Lynch in particular, he was confident enough to use lyrics. So I'm offering support on the snare drum and also offering some hums or harmonic support with my voice. And this brought some confidence where Lynch was able to express lyrics. So all names were changed to protect identity, and Lynch in particular, he struggled with suicidal ideation. And this particular song was the first time he played a pre-composed song in the group, and actually for the group, as we just heard. And what's interesting about that song, it came from the movie Arthur, and Arthur's theme. And Arthur is a really interesting movie where this young man really he fell in love with fell in love with an older lady, and perhaps Lynch was communicating something that was really difficult for him, and in terms of his own relationships with other individuals in the institution. In this example, Therapeutic Relationship 4, this happened in 23rd session, and there was a lot of progress over the 6-month period, and in particular, one person they were absent because they got a new job. There was more awareness of others, they were able to follow tempo, and there were more listening and eye contact. So we ask the question, are words enough? And the benefits of music therapy can enhance a client's way of being, restore his or her status, and provide supportive care in a trusting environment. It can also help clients overcome difficulties in socializing and building relationships, developing confidence in leadership roles, and learning to respect, appreciate, and support others. Further, finding support from other members, increased ability to relax in the company of others, and release of tension and frustration through musical expression. In conclusion, music therapy is a process that offers positive therapeutic relationships, enabling clients to secure a better quality of life within a mental health setting and life in general. Based on the research in 2012, there was little discussion about music therapy and its possible impact in the healthcare setting in Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean. And at the time also, we think about the role music plays in identifying our cultural identity as Trinbagonians, and therefore music therapy used in a clinical therapeutic setting can improve the lives of clients in a Caribbean context. It is important to provide a Caribbean perspective within music therapy research. However, to create a positive impact, more resources are needed. I would like to now play a musical example, and this is in keeping with the 4 seasons. So this is the season just before we start winter, autumn, and I would like to share an interpretation of Autumn Leaves on Steel Pan. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Jamal. We'll probably stop if you want to stop sharing your screen for the moment, although there might be some slides people want to see again, but that was a really fascinating insight into your work and what you've been doing.
Stop sharing.
Something's, yes. Okay. So,
thank you, Helen.
Well, it's been a very interesting preparing for this, and also the dialogues we've had over the years, and people might be interested to know that you've also made a couple of films about the work in your country and how it's developed, and also that there's a podcast. So part of the BAMT podcasts includes an interview with Jamal. So if you want to know more about that, we can send you a link. But right now, there's lots that we could discuss, but I'm just looking to see if there's any questions in the Q&A. Yeah. So the first question is Emma Britton. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was very interesting. As a fellow steel pan player and remembering the confusion, is this okay for me to carry on? Just, I think it will be. Remembering the confusion I felt the first time I played one, I wondered if you would advocate on behalf of using it freely in the UK settings where it is less commonly known. Yeah, that's a great question.
In the UK, the steel pan is widely known, actually. His name is Gerald Forsyth, and Gerald Forsyth started pans in school in the UK. And I remember getting an opportunity to interview Gerald Forsyth for my MA dissertation. And so sometimes it can be confusing, but the steel pan is one of the easiest instruments to play, meaning you can play a melodic or a song, a melodic contour or a song quicker than any other musical instrument. Really, really easier. It's easier to play. So on a guitar, it might struggle to play a particular song on a guitar. On a keyboard, you might struggle with the 10 fingers, but on a steel pan, it's really easier. I hope that answered her question.
There's a couple more, and it's interesting because I think that this aspect of the Caribbean perspective has invited some questions, as well as perspectives on Western music too. So the next question is, please can you elaborate on a Caribbean perspective?
All right, so it's really easy. I would like to see music therapy happen in the Caribbean, to see a training in the Caribbean, to see Caribbean people getting access to help, because there's so much people in the Caribbean who need help to unravel their difficulties and have a better experience emotionally, psychologically, because of the history of their history. So it's really important that we have a Caribbean perspective in terms of getting what's happening in the UK, in the US, Australia. All these different first world nations have music therapy set up, but we don't have it in the Caribbean. We don't. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think what you're also saying, and I suppose this reflects something that we think about a lot actually in the training of music therapists for people who come from another country, is really get the most meaning from the training and in the research is from the perspective of people who live in that country. So I think it's interesting that, maybe in Trinidad and Tobago, people like yourself have led the setting up, but then there'll be it needs to have its own perspective, and that's really important, as you're saying.
Yes.
And linked to that, Michael Hernandez has said, thanks, Jamal. Is there a wide experience of Western music in Trinidad and Tobago? Do you use it often, and how is it received?
That's a really good question. So Trinidad and Tobago is a melting pot of all cultures. So we have all cultures in Trinidad, and on our curriculum in the university or in schools, we are exposed to Western music. And it's been integral in our music making from day dot, I should say. But what's interesting is we encompass all types of music. So there's a lot of fusion that happens in Trinidad and Tobago. So for example, we have Calypso, which is a fusion of blues and jazz into a different expression, a different to our identity, as the case might be. And then we have soca, where we have East Indian instruments being introduced or connected to the calypso music making. And we just have a wide variety of musical tastes, and we encompass all cultures. So yes, it happens at universities, it happens on secondary school level, primary school level, it happens. So we encompass all music, but our identity is calypso, steel pan, and limbo. That's what we are known for.
I mean, if there's time, it might be interesting to hear more about how you, which you talk about in your podcast, but how you made that transition from training in the UK to then going back. But there's another question here that's important, actually, from Sumia Ghosh, thanking you for your presentation. And asking the question, did you find investors or financiers for your music therapy infrastructure and also in the psychiatric hospital? Yes, how is it funded?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it is a development process, right? So the post was created, but there's still some steps to get rooms. So it's going to take time, but it's government funded. So the government will distribute money to the institution, and the institution will pay our salaries and try to accommodate us as best as possible until better can be done. And coming back to your first question, I came on the course with my instruments. And I really appreciated that, because the team at Anglia, they encouraged me to explore my instrument. So I came with my culture to just try to figure out how I can help my culture best. So I worked with two sets of steel pan, a low pair double seconds and a tenor pan from C. So coming back home, I wrote my dissertation on the exploration of steel pan in music therapy, and I think that is where the gap is. We don't have enough information about non-conventional instruments in music therapy. We don't have enough written about that. So coming back to Trinidad, it wasn't difficult for me to hold on to the things I learned at Anglia, because I was able to sync or symmetry, make things balance. So coming back home to Trinidad, it was more convincing the stakeholders that music therapy is a valid profession and an add-on to standard care. And the main thing about that was weekly sessions, because before clients weren't getting weekly sessions. So I created an opportunity to see clients weekly. So I traveled from different clinics on a daily basis, so I could see clients on a weekly basis, and this helped clients to improve a lot more. And part of that is being on the training when I had to do baby observation and figuring out theory and stuff like that.
I know that I've learned a huge amount actually from working with you, Jamal, especially about steel pan and about rhythm. And I can remember discussions where we had a completely different understanding and perspective about how improvisations were happening. And if there was time, I'd be interested to unpack some of the examples you played, and that very synchronous last example.
Right.
I think it was very, very important and very telling. but I can't ask my questions because there's so many from the audience. Great, and I have an opportunity at another time. There's a question here about resistance. Was there any resistance in setting up the service, and how was this negotiated? So I think that's about you setting up the music therapy service.
There was a lot of resistance, and what's important is when one holds on to what they believe is right and correct and do the work. So important part of that was the work showed itself. So yes, there was resistance, but the work spoke volumes. The work spoke volumes. There was no music therapy research ever done before. That was the first time, and there was no well, everything was just like a first time. So then there were more music therapists who went out, or people who trained and came back. And so we now have like 4 of us or 3 of us here. And so it's developing. We have like, at the time there were like 1 or 2 art therapists. Now there are like 16 art therapists. So it's growing. It's really growing. Just music is a little bit difficult because to be a music therapist, you got to be a very good musician. And sometimes there's another way in, but essentially, music is more a challenge for many people compared to the other discipline.
I mean, linked to that, you talked a lot about the non-verbal. I wondered if you could say something about, because I'm quite familiar with your work, I wonder if you could say something about the links between using music in the non-verbal arena, but also about the talking side.
All right. So what's useful about that is the sense you get when someone plays. There's something that happens. And it's really important because you get to help a client identify something. So after the music is made, you get to have a discussion based on that transference or counter transference. And you get to help the client identify a feeling, an emotion, identify something that was really bothering them for a long time. And because of the training, there's a sort of empathy that takes place. And when clients experience this, a number of things happen. One, they feel safe to come back to a music therapy session, or sometimes they feel so vulnerable or so open that they may not want to come back.
But you're talking with people about that. When you say the therapist identifies something, you'd be
so yes, there's a discussion. Yeah. Yes, there's a discussion with the client.
Yeah.
So I wonder what's going on here, if it's related to X, Y.
We've got more questions. Are you okay carrying on? There's lots and lots of questions. It's very interesting.
Until we reach to that point when we can start.
Yeah, well, we have till 6:30, and I think there's time for the other ones. So Simone, hello, Simone, hi again, has asked, and thank you to Jamal, and a question to me, which is, do I think there'll be students going to Trinidad and Tobago to train on their placements anytime soon from the UK? I would hope that this would be an extraordinarily good learning experience. And I do know that there have been discussions about that, but I don't know how far they've got in terms of placements. I can also say that we've been talking together with Jamal and others over there in colleges and universities about maybe some sort of joint training that could arise in the future. So Jamal, would you like to say any more about placements?
Well, similar to you, I'm still, we at a particular point, but yes, there's some students who aim to come to Trinidad in like next year and start a placement. And this is really going to be good for Trinidad, for students who want to come and have a Caribbean experience as well. But in terms of the final details, it's really down to the institutions and just hearing what happens.
Yes.
So I'm still awaiting word, as the case might be.
Great. Yes, thank you. I'm just going to try and cover the rest. And also, Kira, do interrupt if either we go over time or if I've missed any questions. But there's a question about people learning steel pan in schools. And do people learn steel pan in schools, and does it help children? I'll just say what the rest of the questions are. And also, what steps are necessary for music therapy to be more widely recognised in Trinidad and Tobago, do you think?
All right, so I came from a particular background, or that particular background, where I played pan in schools, and there's a lot of value. So in teaching children how to play pan, yes, there's some overlaps when it comes to a music therapy perspective. So we have like confidence, building confidence, self-esteem. But however, when it comes to a child who's struggling with some serious issues, learning to play pan in school, that's not addressed. It's not addressed. So in school, ideally, it would be useful to have a music therapy component in school. So students who have like behavioral issues and stuff like that, they can actually access a music therapy intervention, and that will change the whole ethos of the school. It will change the whole experience of accessing therapy if it happens at the school level. So that will really that will be groundbreaking once something like that happens. But we gotta have like the personnel, we gotta have the people to really to really supply such a service.
Thank you. There's one last question, but
All
it
right.
have to be a quick answer. But
yeah, quick answer.
Peter Watson has asked, which theoretical model do you think has been most useful in your work?
Psychoanalytic, psychoanalysis, psychoanalytic. Simple answer.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm going to hand over to Kira now. It's been so interesting and fascinating, and thanks to the audience for all your questions as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Jamal. It's always interesting to hear about music therapy in different countries. So thank you very much for your presentation. I'd also like to thank everyone for attending today. And please do fill in our survey that you will receive once this webinar has ended. Also, please do join us for our final webinar this year on the 13th of December, talking about music therapy in Thailand. Again, thank you to everyone, and thank you so much, Jamal.
Honor to be here.
Bye now.
Bye.